Good day. These days, we hear of one phrase or one word, one group of words, the deep state. The deep state has come to be associated with American politics. It means the permanent group of policymakers, intelligentsia, military people, politicians who are entrenched in the system, continue to promote a viewpoint, and are beneficiaries of that state, that system. The deep state stays where even if a president comes and a president goes, tries to put his agenda, they make sure that they align him to their own agendas. The deep state is not a new phenomenon. In the Ottoman Empire, in the late 17th century, there was a king, a sultan. The sultan was called Usman II. In fact, he was called Usman the Younger because he came onto the throne very young. He came onto the throne of sultanate at the age of 14. By the time he was 17, he was killed, assassinated, strangled by the deep state of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire too had their own deep state, and it was made up of a group of soldiers called the Janissaries who were supposed to be protectors of the Sultan. They also included Grand Viziers. They also included sometimes the members of the Sultan's harem, his private chambers. Let us just put it that way, where he has all those women. So the deep state has always been there. What was the sin of Usman? He wanted to reform the Janissaries. He talked about reform, but the most important one that was his big sin was that he wanted to visit Mecca. Because you see, as a Muslim, he was the caliph of the two of Islam, and he was the protector of the two mosques. But yet, most times the sultans never ever visited Mecca. He wanted to visit Mecca. That was his excuse. But the Janissaries feared then that he was trying to reform them, change them, and remove them and replace them. They wouldn't let that happen. They revolted, caught him, and strangled him. He was, at that time, the first sultan to be strangled. There was also a situation like that in America where one young, enterprising, very visionary king, president of America then, John F. Kennedy, also talked about peace and reform. He talked about a world, he had vision. He could make speeches. He had a lot of vision about how people should coexist together and how we should not have nuclear armament and so much how we should reduce our wars and all. He too died. Now we find out that the CIA and other members of the deep state seem to have had a big hand in that reality. In these modern times, President Trump, when he was a candidate in 2015, said he would improve his relationship with Russia if he was elected president. He signed, by making that statement, he found out that there were forces that were entrenched in American polity that will not want to allow that happen. It was even a sin against the transatlantic relationship between America and Europe. So what happened? A dossier was contrived in Britain, forwarded to the Democratic Party, and forwarded to the FBI and the CIA, very solid members of the deep state. They cooked up whatever they could cook up, put out a dossier, and put it into the media. The media, they ran with the media, CNN, New York Times, MNNBC, all of them. And they contrived that Trump and Putin were working together to undermine the American elections. It failed. President Trump was elected. Now, President Trump has come again in a second iteration. Now he's on a stronger footing. He has discredited through the revelations of his national security, Tulsi Gabbard. He has discredited most of the statements and all the things they did about the Russiagate thing. And that is even after two special counsels have already found out that there was no such thing as like collusion between the Russians. But it is not ending. He has moved one step forward and now said that he wants to make peace and he's going to have a meeting with President Putin in Alaska. The deep state has moved into gear, fully into gear. There's media talk here and there. There's backlash here and there. And there's a lot of underhand fear and possibility that this meeting will be scuttled. The Europeans have energized having meetings, and today President Trump, taking into consideration their worries, had a Zoom meeting with them, with him and his J.D. Vance. President Trump has been cast in many molds, called all sorts of names just because he says he wants to meet with Putin. And for that, the deep state is fully energized and activated. We still have a day or two to that meeting, and we still have worry that that meeting may be scuttled, even though it may be taking place in an American military base, it may still be scuttled. Good day, and welcome to my channel, Ebima Mongo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the views I express in this video, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Today, President Trump, in frustration, showed that he has had enough of the attacks by the deep state. Today, he put out a tweet. Very unfair media is at work on my meeting with Putin, constantly quoting fired losers and really dumb people like John Bolton, who just said that even though the meeting is on American soil, Putin has already won. What's that all about? We are winning on everything. The fake news is working overtime. No tax on overtime. If I got Moscow and Leningrad free as part of the deal with Russia, the fake news would say that I made a bad deal. But now they've been caught. Look at all the real news that is coming out about their corruption. They are sick and dishonest people who probably hate our country. But it doesn't matter because we are winning on everything. MAGA, make America great again. President Trump has also pushed back. Although, due to the revelations and due to the actions of his FBI director, Kash Patel, his intelligence team, they are rooting out and finding out, and actually there are so many underhand actions going on against the deep state, people who make up the deep state. Even though it is not said, a lot have been removed. A lot have been found and connected to so many underhand dealings in the FBI and the CIA, and they've been slowly and quietly frittered away from Washington. There's cleanouts, there's house cleaning going on in Washington, and it is affecting a lot of the members of the deep state. But one who has particularly been very vocal, has been rubbing off been very nasty to Donald Trump, has been his former national security advisor, John Bolton. John Bolton is a popular person on all the medias that hate Donald Trump. CNN. NBC, all of them, you just name them. I don't even know their names, but they just anyone that says, I don't like Trump, John Bolton is the first person they call. And he always has something to say because both Trump has said that both John Bolton was a dumb guy. John Bolton was a crazy guy who he only used because people knew he was crazy. And whenever he went to meetings, he had John Bolton by himself, by his side, to just scare the people and the delegates that he wanted to discuss with. So John Bolton had his own role then. But since leaving office, John Bolton, being the face of the neocon, the deep state, has been very, very, very antagonistic towards President Trump. And the Europeans particularly, they too have done their own bit in stating that they don't support these discussions with Putin. But what can they do? They've just been shown not to have any hand in the meet recently. The Europeans find themselves in a bad place because President Trump is pressing his advantage. One, he has made them say that they will increase their production, their investment in NATO to 5% of GDP. Two, he has made the EU agree to a deal that is so lopsided that you would want to wonder what was the need for the EU. But what was the need for the EU is that they don't want America to leave Europe. They want Donald Trump to continue to keep forces, American forces in Europe. Then also, he has also shown that the Europeans have no hand because even though he may not be saying it, J.D. Vance continues to press that they want to leave Europe. They want to hand over this Ukraine war. If the Europeans want to continue with it anyway, to the Europeans to fund, they buy American arms and they transfer to Ukraine. America is done with this war. President Trump is saying something that is not palatable to those people who form the deep state and to those people who want a continuation of the war. A large suite of people who benefit from this war, the military-industrial complex. One, they like the fact that they're making a lot of arms and selling to Ukraine, even though those arms have turned out to be very ineffective in the Ukrainian war front. The Russians have been blowing them all out. And at this moment in time, there's almost no Patriot battery anymore to protect the skies of Ukraine. The Russians have figured out how to make them reveal themselves, then use their Iskander missiles or Zircon missiles to blow them out of the way. This is just how it is. And the Abrams tank being blown out by $500, $1,000 drones. All the weapon systems America sends, they just haven't held up. Some the Europeans have even stopped using because they were not effective. Then the others, the Russians just blast them out of the sky with electronic warfare. It's just not been the way that we perceive America to be and American weaponry to be. They have come to meet a peer competitor that has defanged them and made them totally and completely ineffectual in the war theater that is Ukraine. So today, President Trump had this meeting with he called into a meeting with the Ukrainians, and Zelensky hurriedly showed up in Germany. There, European leaders were very cautious and optimistic. They were just subdued, let's just say that word. But President Trump assured them of one thing. He assured them that he will try to not make a deal on behalf of the Ukrainians. He also assured them that he will try to get the best out of the meeting with Putin, and that whatever the outcomes of the meeting, Zelensky will be the first he will call, and Zelensky will also, and the European Union members who are worried, mainly Germany, France, England, Poland, Finland, and even the EU leader, Ursula von der Leyen, will be among the first to know what will happen. Today also, one journalist wanted to know what President Trump will do if that meeting, if Putin doesn't play ball, if that meeting doesn't go the way it's supposed to go, and Putin doesn't come good, the meeting doesn't go well. President Trump was asked by a journalist, and this is what he had to say.
It's not free to stop the war after your.
I think I missed that. Let me do it again.
Vladimir does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday.
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will
there will be consequences.
So President Trump is saying that there will be consequences against the Russians if they don't have the.
Does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday.
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will
there will be consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be. I don't have to say there will be very severe consequences. Yes. Yeah, please.
So President Trump has dodged that one again. He says there will be consequences, but he didn't say what kind of consequences. President Trump, I've said, has become very duplicitous. He has to meander. He tells every audience what they want to hear. And prior to now, the Europeans were having the belief that President Trump will come hard on Putin, attack not just Russia, but also all the countries that traded with Russia. They were looking forward to 100% sanctions against India, China. How he would have dealt with China, though, even now, for his own interests, he hasn't found a way. Talk less about harming China on behalf of the European Union. That isn't happening. So he still hasn't found a way around the China problem. And also possibly Brazil, all the countries who were buying Russian oil, and including even Europe. Today, it emerged that the Ukrainians did something. They attacked a supply, a facility that supplies oil to Hungary and to Europe. Russian gas and Russian oil to Hungary and Europe. They actually attacked it with drones, tried to destroy it, and the Hungarians were very not happy, and they didn't take that. Is there any surprise as to that? Viktor Orban has been a very big opponent of the EU as regards to its policy regarding the Ukraine war. And recently, he vetoed a statement that would have condemned the Russian, or put a position for the meeting that is supposed to be held in Alaska. He stood his ground and told the European Union that they are jokers. They should find a way to come together and find a way to make peace with the Russians, send a delegation to Moscow and start to talk with the Russians. He has also stood in the way of the Ukrainians' accession to EU, and even he says there's just no way that they will join NATO. He has always said it. So he is an obstacle to the Ukrainians. But there's an irony. It is Hungary that actually supplies a vast amount of the electricity that goes into Ukraine. Because Ukraine's electricity infrastructure has been destroyed repeatedly by the Russians. They have attacked it. And even though Ukraine has 4 nuclear power plants, those have not been attacked. The Russians have done well to destroy most of the substations and all the electricity distribution infrastructure. But they still get electricity. Now a lot of countries are making sure that they support Ukraine in getting electricity. And one of those countries, ironically, is Hungary. But in anger, Ukraine wants to lash out and destroy the facilities that supplies gas to Hungary. So the meeting today that took place, the Zoom meeting, Zelensky attended. He was welcomed. He was received by Frederick Mice, and he And they had a joint press conference. But it was just a joke. The Europeans will not be in that meeting in Alaska. Zelensky will not be in that meeting in Alaska. And even though today President Trump said that he is going to try and make sure that he quickly organizes a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. He said it. He said he would make sure that after this is meeting with Putin, and if he gets to get the feeling that there can be progress, he will organize and initiate, facilitate a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. But we already know that there's one other meeting he's supposed to do. He's supposed to have a reciprocal visit to Moscow. So he probably will be on his third visit after he has visited Moscow, because Andrei Yermak, Putin's presidential aide, has already said that Trump will be visiting Moscow. And even Caroline Levitt has said the same thing, that Trump will be visiting Moscow. The location of the meeting in a barracks is quite interesting. The meeting will be taking place in the joint base Emmendorf-Richardson, a U.S. base in Anchorage. It leaves a lot to it leaves a lot for you to wonder why they have to go into a military barracks to hold this meeting. Because we should not underestimate the forces that don't want this meeting to take place. I have already said in one video that the MI6, very powerful. Even the CIA, the American CIA, a place full of, running over with, a breeding ground of deep state agents. They too may just have their own way of leaking information out of that meeting, undermining the meeting. The Israeli Mossad, very powerful. They have an interest. One of the things people forget about a country like Russia is that because of so many cycles of social tensions, and because of their relationship with their neighboring countries in the Eastern Europe, quite a lot of people have lost assets or projected assets or valuable assets they think they may have gotten out of Russia, because Russia, one, was a starry state full of well-to-do families before they became a communist state. And even after being a communist state, in the years of Boris Yeltsin, Russia was opened up and a lot of people were hopeful and poured into Russia, got a good slice of Russia, got great assets, and they hoped to derive a lot of benefit from those assets going forward. But Putin put a stop to most of this. So they have a lot of people who are not too happy with the Russian state. It's a generational thing, some for over 100 years, 200 years. It's a long generation thing, and it is for that reason why a lot of those people who ended up in America, ended up in Europe, are now constituting the continuous and unending opposition to the Russian state. Even if it is not Putin, it will be another person. They have their eyes on the Russian state. It's there. They continue to worry about that. They feel like they have some matters that are on unfinished business with Russia. It is, Russia will almost never get friends in the West for a long time, especially those in America. And this meeting that is taking place between President Trump and Putin is something so against the grain that if the deep state had their way, they probably will feel the need to do to President Trump, what may have happened to Sultan Usman. But President Trump is very aware of them. He's fighting them in his own way, flushing them out, and draining the swamp. That's the phrase he keeps using. But they are there. And today he lashed out to one of the biggest members of the deep state, John Bolton, and called out the media that also puts out the word of the deep state, and told them that he knows what they are doing. We all know what they are doing. We all are worried, and we have just a few more hours more before this meeting, and it will be historical, and we hope that it does eventually happen. This is where I end my video for today. If you have any ideas, if you have your own ideas regarding what you think about the role the deep state have been playing in American politics, or even in the politics of many other countries, because every country in this world have their own version of the deep state. If your country has its own version of the deep state, put them in the comment section. Let us know. They have entrenched people who benefit. Some people call them the reactionaries. They don't. They have different names for them in different realities. And if you think, I've asked this question before, but if you really think that Zelensky should be the first person that Trump should call, I don't think so. That, if you ask me, I don't think it's consequential. It may be because Trump has promised, for the sake of courtesy, he will do that. As regards to the EU, if you think they should have a role to play going forward, put them in the comment section. Give me your own ideas as what you think may happen with this meeting and what your opinion is regarding how Trump should go about dealing with Putin. Until I see you in my next video, please subscribe if this is your first time of coming to my channel, and share and like. See you in the next video. Goodbye.